unreal, surreal election we have ever seen.
We have a new name for the coronavirus. The World Health Organization has officially called it COVID-19.
Lines crossing the Bloomberg terminal right now that Elon Musk has agreed to buy Twitter for $54.20 a share in cash.
The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York has confirmed the arrest of FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried in the Bahamas.
Smart people doing stupid things to incompetence or haste, but this one just, it doesn't make sense. First, the facts. Balenciaga is one of the world's most expensive clothing brands.
Convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein remains behind bars today on
abuse of underage girls. Prosecutors say that she recruited and groomed 4
times. As you and I well remember, the president was impeached, President Trump was impeached. No Republicans voted in the House.
With me now. And so, Philip, what's the latest then that we're getting on the Russian attacks in Ukraine?
Well, day 2. In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Good morning, everybody, and good morning, Brian. Did you get any sleep last night after your interview with General Flynn?
I was up for probably like another 2 hours of just adrenaline and everything, my thoughts and everything else that was going through. We had an incredible podcast last night on Sit Rep with General Flynn. He went a full hour extra with us, so we got a 2-hour interview with him, and it's phenomenal. I was telling Chris last night that you got to watch it, even through the Rumble rants at the end. We got a ton of Rumble rants, and in between them, he would drop these little sidebar conversations that were just, I mean, gold, man. It was an absolute awesome conversation.
It's great. I actually see one of the first Rumble rants here. John, in case you missed it, it's always better to ask for forgiveness instead of permission. Taking that into consideration, we may have invited General Flynn to Chandler. Please forgive us. I mean, if he agrees to come to Chandler for GART, he is more than welcome to attend and speak as long as he wants and do whatever he wants. The general can do whatever he wants, guys.
Yeah, we kind of invited him. I said, I'm pretty sure John would not object to this, but I'm going to go ahead and invite you to Chandler, and you can have whatever speaking spot you want.
What did he say?
He's like, I don't know. I'll have to look and see. I also volunteered to read his book, 5th Gen Warfare, to record it for an audiobook. And
really? Patrick's actually reading that already. I believe he's doing a series for his Reading Epic Threads.
Oh, there you go. That would be good as well. Although I don't know, for a book like this, I think you got to kind of get the nitty gritty kind of voice down. So I'd have to see Patrick try that one out.
Yeah, he's got a few different accents he can throw around. That's funny though. Yeah, we should reach out to him and talk to him and see if he actually wants to come out to GART. That would be pretty incredible if we can get him there.
Absolutely. And the conversation we had about the 5th Gen Warfare and everything else that's going on in the country last night was remarkable. So yeah.
Let's real quick, let's do our first sponsor today, and then we can get into some of the news, man. The news never sleeps.
Nope.
Freaking crazy. Okay, our first sponsor, guys, cbdistillery.com. You guys should be no stranger to CB Distillery by now. They have been a great sponsor of ours for quite a while. Whether you're suffering from, lack of sleep, or you're super stressed out, maybe it's, pain that you're suffering from working out, or just generally, maybe you don't have enough energy, you need better focus, whatever it is that you are struggling with, you could join the over 2 million satisfied customers from CB Distillery. 90% of their customers report they sleep better. 81% say CBD helps them with their stress. 80% say that it helps with aches and pains after physical activity. So whatever it is, you go to cbdistillery.com. You can shop whichever category you want. They even have the Delta 9 THC. But go to cbdistillery.com. Use promo code JON for 20% off your order. And I could not urge you to do this now. I mean, I love their stuff, and their gummies are probably one of my favorite things. They're delicious and they're helpful.
Sorry.
So
yeah, give it a shot, folks. A lot of people have misconceptions about cannabis in general, but especially CBD. There's no mind-altering effects of it whatsoever. And in fact, a little known fact, you can use CBD. So if you do partake in the THC aspects of cannabis, like myself, you can actually so this does happen where you go into you actually consume too much especially with edibles, because you'll
Crunch.
take an edible. Yeah, you'll take an edible and they don't hit for like 20 or 30 minutes sometimes. And so you'll like after 5 minutes, you're like, no, I'm not feeling anything. So you take another one. And then in 10 minutes, you're not feeling anything. You take another one. And then all of a sudden it hits you and you're just like way out there. You can actually take CBD to bring yourself back down. It's one of the most, it's the craziest thing. Like there used to be this cooking show where they talk about cooking with cannabis, and like they would start the meal out using oils and stuff that involve THC. And then by the end of the meal for dessert, you usually put in CBD because it brings you back down to the point where you can drive and function and all that other stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It's pretty crazy how they kind of counteract each other like that. So yeah, check it out, cbddistillery.com.
Awesome.
All right. So as we always like to, well, we don't like to, but as we always do on this show, I usually start paying tribute to those who died suddenly and, were kind of duped by the science, PSYENSE, not science. And we're going to start out today with a deputy that died suddenly after falling ill during basic training. Sheriff's office says Indiana authorities say that a deputy died after becoming ill during training on Thursday. The Vanderbilt County Sheriff's Office says its team is mourning the loss of 33-year-old deputy Asan Hacker. WFIE reports that Hacker was participating in training when he fell ill and was rushed to the hospital by the Evansville Police Department. The sheriff's office said the 33-year-old died despite the life-saving efforts of the hospital staff, as he never regained consciousness. So it doesn't.
years old.
33. Doesn't say why he died. It just says he fell ill during training and died from that. Now there's a lot of things that could happen during training. It's pretty strenuous. Could have been a heat stroke, could have been dehydration, and that shut everything down. But hopefully we'll find out more about this. I'm sure there'll be an autopsy into this because it's in the line of duty. Well, in training, in service. So, and then we have another story here from the Sun. An unbelievable loss. Jockey Alex Canchari, quote, dies suddenly, end quote, age 29, leaving behind a devastated wife and children. He's died suddenly at 29. The U.S.-based rider was said to have passed away unexpectedly, leaving behind a wife and 2 children. 29 years old, looks, perfectly fit in those pictures right there. A jockey that's probably making a very, very healthy living. So, who knows what's going on with all this. And then we have another one here. 31-year-old star of Elvis movie was rushed to the ER when the body just started shutting down. Austin Butler, the actor who played Elvis Presley in the biopic Elvis, recently made headlines after revealing that he had to visit the emergency room following the end of filming. So, I don't know what's going on. It does say here that my body just started shutting down the day after I finished Elvis. This is crazy, man.
This is not normal, guys. This is not normal.
And then I want to jump into this just real quick on this Substack. Do U.S. life insurance companies need to dial 911? Extra deaths in 2022 combined with massive losses on investment portfolios equal ballpark losses of $911 billion? Question mark. Now this is ballpark math, but one of the lines here, combining those with excess mortality numbers for the last 3 years from here, preliminary U.S. mortality for 2022 indicates that around 560,000 more Americans are dying every year compared to 2018 and 2019. And then he goes into some math here, just ballpark math, to show that the life insurance industry is going to be taking a huge hit. It says the average value of the life policies is $168,000. Extra deaths are around $560,000 for three years, and half of Americans have some form of a life insurance. It says, let's make a simplifying assumption that half of the extra deaths were insured. That would be 168,000 times 280 times 3 years is $141 million. And he just says, let's take a third of that. And you're looking at a $47 billion hit to the life insurance industry. And, John, I've said on this program many times that I think the life insurance industry, they're going to be kind of the whistleblowers on what's going on here. They're going to be the ones that raise the red flags when they're not meeting their financial obligations.
I used to work and sell insurance. I worked for State Farm for a little bit, and then I worked for a life insurance company based out of Minnesota for a little bit. And they use actuarial data to set their pricing, right? Like, so it's based on statistics and mortality rates and everything. And as those change, so do the prices. The data that I think we're getting on life expectancy and the situation, I don't think it's quite accurate. And so I do believe, I mean, especially new policies or anything that came out recently, very recently. I mean, it's being based on pricing that is not accurate. It's way too low. I guarantee it. But yeah, they're in for a rude awakening. I mean, it's kind of nuts. Like there's so much insurance and reinsurance involved. So like these life insurance companies, they will take out they will sell you a policy, right? Like let's say $50 for $100,000 life insurance policy. I mean, they're betting on the statistics that you will live long enough to basically outlive your policy, and they make money. Okay. Or they'll go and reinvest it. They'll do other things, but most of the time they'll take your policy and they'll sell it to a reinsurer, and they'll do it in batches. And so the reinsurance company has all these risks. If these companies have to start paying out the ass for these life insurance policies, I mean, it's not a pyramid scheme, but in a way, it's like they're it's not sustainable if the data is not accurate and people start dying all of a sudden. Like if everybody half the population died right now and they had to go and pay out all this life insurance, I don't believe they'd have the money to do it. Any of these people, like it's a gamble. You're taking in premiums, you're paying out a way bigger life insurance policy. It's they're not going to be able to meet their obligations if things continue to go the way they are.
And
That's
when
just
they
my
get
opinion.
Yeah, and when they get sued into oblivion by the policyholders that can no longer collect, or the beneficiaries, I should say, at that point, and they can no longer collect, who do you think that's going to fall back on? The life insurance policies aren't just going to say, "Oh, we're going to close our doors and we're out of here." That's all going to fall back on the U.S. government. So, are we going to see the government try and subsidize these life insurance companies and fund them just to keep them on the hush hush? Or, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I don't know. I mean, we're heading towards a situation. I mean, first of all, they just print the money anyway, right? So they can do whatever the hell they want. If they want to bail out the insurance industry, they can. It's not going to make a difference. Uh, where we're ultimately headed here is some sort of financial collapse. That's my opinion. We're not financial advisors. I do urge you all to go to kirkelliottphd.com and slash Badlands and check out some gold and silver. But yeah, I mean, people are saying, what about annuities? That's how you do it. Those fixed rate annuities are interesting too, but again, it's even the fixed rate annuities, those are based on these companies taking your money and essentially going and buying bonds with it, or treasury, whatever, from the government, and those prices are like skyrocketing up here too right now. So like a lot of those fixed rate annuities aren't going to be, again, I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, but we're heading towards a perfect storm here for a lot of these big insurance companies as well. Like they're going to be suffering, and I bet at some point here that they're going to be the next round of layoffs or something, because it's not sustainable where we're headed for any industry.
Do you think layoffs would even be able to, subsidize the losses? I mean, you're
No.
talking billions and billions of dollars. I mean, they would have to lay off almost everybody in order to make up for that difference.
Yeah, no, it's not feasible. But yeah, when people die young like this, it's remarkable how cheap some of those term policies are. Like I said, you can be like 30 years old and get like a $50 a month, $100,000 death benefit policy, right? Again, don't quote me on that, but that's like roughly what it was when I was selling it. And I mean, if you have a huge number of those kinds of policies, people dying young in their like 30s, like you didn't take in nearly that much money. You may have taken in like $2,500, but you have to go and pay out $100,000, and if you have to do that multiple times over, that's incredible losses, like incredible losses.
Do you think at some point these life insurance companies, like, so for example, with life insurance, like if you're a tobacco user or drug user or anything like that, they won't take you. Do you think at some point you're going to see them say, if you're vaccinated, we're not taking you?
Wouldn't be surprised, and they will take you. Like, you chew tobacco or smoke or whatever, you just have a higher premium because again, you chew or smoke, your chance of dying is higher than somebody who doesn't, and so they factor that in, and it goes up with age, right? And so as you get older, like some of these term policies, right? As you reach the end of your term, you have the option to renew it on an annual basis, or like just get into something for another term. And when people get older, they're kind of forced, they have all these ailments and they're forced to renew it at the current price. And every year you do that, it goes up. So you could be in your 60s and still stuck paying this like, insane premium. And it's like, 6,000 a year. The next year it's 7,000 a year. You're 60, 70 years old. Um, I could totally see if we get the truth about the vaccine and stuff, that yeah, I mean, I don't see why that wouldn't account for some sort of higher percentage of, or higher price, that you'd have to factor that in.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting. Let's jump into this story here. Miss a car payment and Ford's patent could shut off your AC. Now, that's a little deceptive. It's not your AC in your home, it's your AC in your vehicle. But Ford Motor Company, yeah, listen to this. Ford Motor Company has filed for a patent on technology that could remotely shut down your radio or air conditioning, lock you out of your vehicle, or prompt it to ceaselessly beep if you miss a car payment. Ford said it has no plans to use the technology contained in just one of the many patents filed by the automaking giant. Still, it emerges at a troubling time for car owners. Loan delinquencies have been steadily ticking back up from the pandemic lull. Cox Automotive data showed severely delinquent auto loans in January, hitting their highest point since 2006. Build back better, ladies and gentlemen. The use of technology to aid repossessions isn't new, but the patent application is wide-ranging, even proposing the idea that an autonomous vehicle could drive itself to a quote-unquote more convenient location to be collected by a tow truck. According to the Ford patent application for repossession-linked technology, cruise control and automated windows could be disabled if a consumer doesn't acknowledge a notice of an overdue car payment. Ford could also shut down key fobs, door locks, even the accelerator of the engine itself. Now, Wes Sherwood, a spokesperson for Ford, says there's quote unquote no plan to deploy this. He says, quote, "We submit patents on new inventions as a normal course of business, but they aren't necessarily an indication of new business product plans," Ford said in a statement. Now, what does this tell you, John? This tells me as a stockholder of Ford, either one of two things. Either Ford wants to have absolute control over your vehicle. If you don't hold up to your obligations to them, that they will intervene, or they're wasting money carelessly on research and development for technologies that they have no plans to use. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Now, I mean, maybe down the road they could use this, but at what point, is the individual sovereignty going to be at risk here? Like, think about, you're driving down the road and you're a week late on a car payment because you're still trying to recover from the last 2 years of BS that we've had to deal with. And Ford just is like, you know what, we're going to turn off your accelerator. You're stuck on the side of the road. Or, you're not going to be able to use air conditioning, which, out in Arizona, someplace where it's 120 degrees in the day. Imagine what this is all going to, the possibilities of being able to use this and why they would even develop this technology is interesting.
I'm not even worried about Ford. Like, I don't think they would be the ones that would take advantage of this.
Bingo.
I'm worried about our government, because our government sees this as an opportunity. Okay, I don't like this person's political beliefs. I'm going to make sure they don't have access to their car. This is what they do in China, right? The social credit system. I've seen some videos. There's a Twitter account I follow out of China, and he shows videos all the time. Like, you have a chip right in your palm. That's what you use to pay. You have to show your face on a screen to like even pay and use vending machines. And if you are on a list or you do something that they don't like, you can't have access to this stuff. They've automized everything where you have to show and identify yourself through scan or the chip to basically have access to anything, whether it's food, just groceries, using the bathroom. They give you toilet paper, like in the same way in some public places, you have to show your face and they dispense toilet paper for you. If you don't fall in line, they'll shut off access to all that stuff. And so the same thing with the cars, they can do this with everything. This is why it's important for you to have your own sovereignty and big government is a massive problem. And that's what Trump was fighting against, right? That's why, Trump's movement is so important, not just here, but globally, because that is not freedom in any fashion. Somebody else having the control to shut you out of your vehicle. And again, I don't think Ford would do this. I don't think they would take advantage of the technology like that. It's the government that I'm worried about.
And that was my next point, is that they're not, they were very clear in saying Ford has no plans on doing this, but guess what Ford can do? They can license that technology to somebody else, like the federal government, like the banks, it's not, if Ford doesn't have any desire to repossess your car. Ford, they don't care. Once you finance your vehicle, unless you're going through Ford Credit, they really don't have much interest. If it's going through GMAC or, what any of these other big auto finance industries, Ford isn't going to do it. So he's not lying in saying that. But if he puts the technology in there, for example, I don't think OnStar is owned by GMC. It's a subcontractor. It's a license that GMC has with another company. Same with, Sirius Radio and all these other things. So yeah, the fact that they're developing this and putting it in the cars, no, they're not going to use it. They're going to give it to other people to use. So yeah.
Think about this too, what we saw with the Twitter files yesterday. And I don't know if we're going to get into this, but basically our government was using journalists to go to a private company to get people suspended off of Twitter, right? Our government, you don't think they would use private companies to do other things, right? Like our government's already shown that they are willing to not only use journalists and control journalists. So that's another point. I was going to make a Twitter post on this, Fabe. I forgot. But our government will interfere in your personal life using businesses. And so they will 100% take advantage of a technology like this if they're able to.
And that's a good opportunity, just real quick, to plug General Flynn's book one more time, because he talks a lot about this stuff in that book, and it's phenomenal. I can't wait for session 2, and I would love to be able to read it. Are you trying to pull something up?
Oh, yesterday I was working on a draft tweet. I was just going to post it before I forget.
Oh, okay.
My point was, we saw from the Twitter files. Well, okay, first, how did it start? It was Chris Paul. He sent or on his Telegram, he posted a tweet. And it was, let me see if I can just find it and read it to you guys quick. Sorry, hold on, guys. This is unplanned.
Yeah, we do that from time to time. Yeah. I will say this, though, speaking of Chris Paul up at CPAC, you guys are definitely going to want to watch. Well, I don't know. I'm going to try and figure out how I can maybe live stream this, but tomorrow afternoon, before Trump speaks at CPAC, there's going to be a huge breaking story, and we'll just leave it at that.
So with Chris Paul?
No, but he's up there, and I was telling him about it last night.
Well, what the heck? You haven't told me about it yet.
I tried to. You didn't text me back last night.
What was that? Last night or this morning?
Last night.
Okay. Well, I'll get back to you. This is what he posted. He said, this is CNET Daily. The explosion of the Nord Stream pipelines is one of the biggest acts of economic sabotage carried out on the EU. So it is very, very strange that there is no appetite for investigation, no appetite for accountability or restitution, nearly no discussion of it here at all. And my point is, we saw from the Twitter files that our government was going to journalists and telling them what to do to get other accounts suspended off of Twitter, right? They're controlling journalists.
Yep. If
they can control journalists in those type of actions, and this isn't like a breakthrough, revelation. This is something we already knew, but it's just hammering the point home. Our government can also control the journalists and tell them what stories they can and can't cover. And I believe that the longer we go without journalism or journalists in the mainstream media reporting on the Nord Stream pipeline, or at least trying to figure out what actually happened, I think that implicates the U.S. more and more by the day as them being the guilty party. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. That's one thing I regret not being able to talk to General Flynn about last night. We talked about China and the balloon, as well as, what we've been discussing about China being the diplomat and the go-between, the intermediary between Ukraine, Russia, and the United States, and how we have no desire whatsoever to be the diplomats like we typically are. And instead we're delegating that essentially through an absence of our own diplomacy to China. And we talked about that with General Flynn. That was a really interesting segment of that podcast last night. But speaking of journalism, I want to jump into this article because we talked about artificial intelligence the other night. Well, now we get this from The Verge. CNET is doing big layoffs just weeks after AI generated stories came to light. This is crazy, John. So just weeks after news broke that tech site CNET was quietly using artificial intelligence to produce articles, the company is doing extensive layoffs that include several longtime employees, according to multiple people with knowledge of the situation. The layoffs total around a dozen people. That's not the big thing. I mean, a dozen people, it is what it is. But in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it sucks for those dozen people and their stakeholders. But a CNET staffer says about 10% of the public mastheads. CNET editor-in-chief Connie Guglielmo will also step down from her role and become the senior vice president of AI content strategy and editor at large. The fact that they have a senior vice president of AI content strategy is a little bit crazy, but let's get down here to this part. In January, Futurism reported that CNET had published dozens of articles since last November that were generated using AI tools, much to the surprise of readers. The outlet hadn't formally announced it was doing so. Other Red Venture-owned properties, Bankrate and CreditCards.com, also had been publishing similar pieces. The company paused the practice after public outcry and factual errors in stories and promised to do an audit of all articles using AI systems. On CNET, more than half of the articles eventually had corrections made to them. Shocking. Artificial intelligence got it factually incorrect on over half of the articles. That's crazy right there.
Like
Let me
Wikipedia.
Yeah, dude, tell me about it. It finishes by saying, well, the last that we're concerned with says, though AI-generated stories were put on pause in January, Red Ventures is preparing to deploy the tool again soon, according to an internal meeting held in late February. So, John, not only do we have a kind of prominent CNET news outlet putting out stories generated by AI, they did it without telling anybody that they were doing it, and it failed miserably. Over half of the stories had to have factual corrections issued to it. I mean, that right there should be like, that should be make CNET persona non grata in the media right now. The fact that they did this without letting anybody know, hey, folks, we're using artificial intelligence to generate what you consume. Whole nother level of Operation Mockingbird.
It's fraudulent too. I mean, are they subscriber based? I mean, if the subscribers didn't know they were subscribing to, that's a form of fraud, in my opinion. I don't know. It's scary stuff, but this is in a way where we are headed technologically. It's already out there. I don't know. I don't know what we do to combat this. It's scary to think about. Like we talked about yesterday, technology is a great thing for a lot of reasons, but it does get to a point where again, in my opinion, where it starts to go backwards in a lot of certain areas. Like there needs to be a human element to journalism because, and maybe I don't know, because the human element of journalism lately has been so corrupt and fraudulent as well. It's
Correct.
It's almost no better. So it's a kind of a conundrum we find ourselves in. But that's why we're here. We're trying to fix that, right?
Yep.
But yeah, scary stuff.
Well, one of the things I talked about with General Flynn last night was artificial intelligence being used in 5th gen warfare, because now, before we had data scraping where you could have databases of people and all sorts of information on people just gathered from social media. But now with artificial intelligence, now you have the ability to gather it, well beyond just social media. I mean, there's all sorts of data that can be scraped on either one of us online. And when artificial intelligence can amass that data, not just at the individual level, but at a community level, and it can do this in seconds. I mean, it doesn't take long for it to be able to put this all together. And when you have that ability for this artificial intelligence to be able to put together that sort of a database and use that data to manipulate a mass, and put out factually incorrect. Now, I'm not saying CNET intended on manipulating people, but in the hands of bad actors, in the hands of operatives, so to speak, that is a huge, that's the atomic bomb of 5th generation warfare. The ability to be able to manipulate masses based on information like that accumulated so quickly. It's crazy.
So I want to get to our next sponsor here quick before we move on. This is a new sponsor. Pretty excited about them. I got a spot here to play. 1 second.
Got sleep issues? Got sleep issues? Let me guess.
Can you turn off there's echo?
Yeah, that's my fault.
Okay.
Got sleep issues? Let me guess. All natural sleep aids don't work for you. Well, they only have 1 or 2 ingredients to help you sleep. Try the brand new Sleepy Joe Sleep Aid. With 18 powerful sleep-inducing ingredients, Sleepy Joe is guaranteed to put you out like Sleepy Joe in his mama's basement. The label says take 2, I take 1. 30 minutes before I plan to sleep, and I'm out like a light for about 8 hours. Grab yourself a bottle at redpillliving.com/sleep. Lights out.
Sleepy Joe, Red Pill supplements. It's going on the bottom here. Living.sleep. Promo code Badlands for 10% off. I take these, the Sleepy Joe, and I love them. I can only take one myself, and honestly, on days when I have my kids here, I almost can't take them. Like I have to think to myself, I don't know if I should take this or not, because I almost worry that I'm not going to wake up because I sleep so good on them, especially that, and I use CBD. So they also have another one that's this Dark to Light, it's called. It's like a mental focus thing.
I love that one.
Yeah, super good as well. So check them out, guys. Redpillliving.com/sleep, promo code Badlands. But yeah, anything on their website, I believe promo code Badlands will get you 10% off. So check them out.
Awesome. And it's always good to support our sponsors, especially ones that are aligned with this movement, so to speak, the America First MAGA. All right, so let's jump into this story here. Ukraine, speaking of the media, Ukraine lists NBC News reporter on Ukrainian government hit list after he reports that, gasp, most Crimeans are pro-Russia. I mean, we talk about this all the time, John, and it's good to see an NBC reporter putting some light to this. NBC reporter is it Keir Simmons from England recently traveled to Ukraine and Crimea to cover the war in Ukraine. During his visit to Crimea, Keir found that most residents were pro-Russian. I mean, I feel like I was talking about this for the last 6 months, that they've polled this over and over again, and these people want to be Russian. They don't want to be Ukrainian. They voted for this. Following his report, the Ukrainian regime placed him on the Mratverets website, which was managed by the Ukrainian security services. The Ukrainian regime website says, quote, he has attacked Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, end quote. So in other words, guys, the democracy that we're being urged to send our sons and daughters over there to protect really isn't a democracy. It's a tyranny. It's a fascist dictatorship. And if you speak out against them, the brown shirts will come get you, quite literally, because we know Ukraine is infiltrated by Nazis in the Azov battalion, et cetera, which is part of the security services. I mean, this is just, how can people not see what's really going on there? And yeah, there's the hit list right there that this journalist is now on. So maybe this NBC reporter will actually wake up and be like, yo, folks, Zelensky needs to come to the table and start talking about giving up this territory that the people want to give up. So
I don't think he can or will. Like that the peace route here, I don't believe is the option, because that's not what the establishment and the globalists want. The NATO, they don't want peace, guys. They want a prolonged war. They want a World War III. They've been trying to basically provoke a World War III by drawing these stupid arbitrary lines in the sand, and they've been doing it for over a year now. They want World War III. It's a huge money making operation for these people. You got to understand that. It's not just the defense contractors, but there's so many aspects that they are able to launder this money when they send it over to Ukraine. And again, the FTX thing, where we send all this money to Ukraine partners with FTX, and then FTX goes and pours that money back into local politics here in the United States. That is not a unique thing. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other facets of money laundering that we're going to see as we eventually get the truth on this, because there are people digging into it. The inspector generals and the military, the DoD inspector general, especially Robert Storch, they're keeping track of the money being sent there and the weapons and stuff. And I think eventually we are going to see some accountability, hopefully.
I think we need this, I'm kind of thinking about this, and I think we need to consider maybe a law that lawmakers that vote in favor of war are obligated to send somebody from their direct family to the front lines to fight in said war. Maybe that would make them a little more reluctant to just, wage war on every single, I don't know. I'm not actually a proponent of that. That's more rhetorical, and I'm not in favor of a draft or forcing anybody into service of the country. But something that would kind of, when Zelensky says we're going to send our sons and daughters, or we need the U.S. to send your sons and daughters, and some of them are going to die, it's like, why? For you? So if you're going to vote for that, put your money where your mouth is and back that up before you send, the poor kid from Alabama, or, some whatever it is, to go over there and die for their cause. So
think about, that's such a great point. Think about how awful it is that our election systems are broken, right? We have fraudulent elections, and there are people in office right now, in power, making decisions like sending your kids to war, who should not be there, should not be making that decision. We did not actually elect these people to be making that decision. That's beyond criminal. That's there's so many aspects to stolen elections. That's why I keep saying our election system is the number one issue of our time, really, because that fixes so many other issues. it's, it may not be as big as people think it is, but it impacts so many different things that it is the number one issue of our time.
100%. I say this every single time. So let's get into this story here from First Post. German defense minister says his country cannot protect itself in a war. That's bizarre, because haven't they been sending a crap ton of money? I corrected myself. Sending a crap ton of money to Ukraine for that exact reason? Well, let's see. German army is not capable of protecting the country against any offensive, said Defense Minister Boris Pistorius. He further alleged that the Bundeswehr is understaffed and underequipped after being neglected from the federal government for decades. Quote, "We have no armed forces that are capable of defending Germany, that is, capable of defending it against an offensive, brutally waged aggressive war," says German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius during a meeting with fellow members of the Social Democratic Party. The minister claimed that the German army is understaffed and does not have adequate equipment, as has been neglected from the federal government for decades. He said Germany will have to increase its investment in its military in order to be up to NATO standards. Where have I heard that from before, John? Last week, Lieutenant General Alphonse Mays, the company's commander and highest ranking officer of the German army, said that $100 billion euro previously promised by Chancellor Olaf Scholz would not be enough to make the country's armed forces battle ready. Despite a worrisome state of defense at home, Germany has been providing extensive assistance to war-torn Ukraine as it fights against Russian invasion for over a year now. The German government has transferred 2 state-of-the-art air defense systems to Ukraine that were meant to protect Berlin, and said CEO Rheinmetall Armin Paperger that's what he said to him. I'm not going to get into all that stuff. Germany sending weapons to Ukraine have been facing criticism and protest. On Saturday, Die Linke organized a rally calling for Chancellor Olaf to restrict supplying arms to Kiev. So you've got now Trumpism coming full circle here. NATO needs to hold themselves accountable. They need to contribute the proper defense budget, equivalent to what the United States is wow, where's my brain go? Equivalent to what the United States is giving. They just need to do it in proportion. There you go, proportionate. That's the word I was looking for. It's too early for me. I need my red pill focus, dark to light. Anyways, but basically what we're seeing here, John, is Germany is giving all this money over to Ukraine. They're giving weapons and everything else to air defense systems that were designed to protect their capital. And what are we getting in return? They can't even defend themselves. I mean, what a sad state of affairs.
That sounds like a perfect opportunity for our government to step in and start saying, "Oh, Germany can't defend themselves. We better send more money to Germany." It's it's coming.
Weren't we just talking about sending Leopard 2 tanks from Germany to Ukraine, and they're talking about they have 300 of them and only 30% of them are combat effective? That means 90 of their tanks can actually defend the country.
It's ridiculous.
It's backwards world we live in. And then another thing from Germany here. This is from Notes from Poland. German woman banned from Poland after trying to help migrants at Belarus. What does that say, John? Is that open
wall.
Border? What is it? What does that say?
Border wall.
Border wall in Europe? No way. They were yelling at us about border walls and everything else. A German woman has been expelled from Poland and banned from entering the country for 5 years after repeatedly violating a ban on civilians accessing the area along the border with Belarus, where the Polish government recently constructed a wall to prevent crossings by migrants. No way. They built a wall? In the summer of 2021, thousands of migrants and asylum seekers, mostly from the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, began trying to cross into Poland from Belarus. They were encouraged and assisted in doing so by the Belarusian authorities in what the Polish government and EU called, quote unquote, a hybrid action. In response, Poland last year constructed a wall and an electronic monitoring system along the border, which has contributed to a significant decline in the number of irregular crossings. Mind blown. I mean,
how that works.
You can't make this up anymore, John. I mean, say what you will about Trump in the mainstream media. He's been right about every single thing. And the European Union right now is living in what Trump was promoting. NATO.
Well, it's funny. Think back to remember the State of the Union? how Biden got up there, the guy who stopped Trump's wall from being completed, the guy who basically opened up the borders, basically a sieve, and he gets up there and starts preaching how we need a border wall. But I mean, he didn't say specifically a border wall. He's like, we need some sort of contraption that we can build that is stationary, that does not allow people to bypass the lines into the United States. Like he did his best to not say the word border wall, but that's what he was talking about. We need a wall. And so it's fascinating that these people, I mean, walls work. Trump was right about everything, like you said, but it's politics to these people. They wouldn't give Trump the funding. He had to get creative to do it. They stonewalled him at every turn. But now it's okay to build these contraptions that are meant to keep people out of places because Trump's out of office. It's just so hypocritical.
I mean, Trump, like it's beyond belief. Like we talked a lot about Trump last night in the podcast, especially towards the end. And it's unreal how brilliant, what he was saying and what he was trying to do. And he's just being stonewalled by our own government. But, and now you're seeing, I mean, to think that they built a wall and then they're going to sit there and say that there were significant reductions in irregular crossings. They don't want to say illegal crossings because that'd be a little bit too, rewarding to President Trump. But, did you want to pull something up?
Yeah, I do. I just need it's another, form of hypocrisy here. I want to share this. Just gotta share my audio.
Yep, I muted mine already.
Okay, check this out.
We've been very clear that TikTok, poses a problem and an issue. And so we have concerns about that as it relates to Americans' data, collecting Americans' data, and the potential national security risk. And we've been very, very clear on that. We've been very clear that
they say that they've been very clear about the threat that TikTok poses, right? Well, let's go to Federal Register here quick. This is an executive order, 13942, issued August 6th of 2020, titled Addressing the Threat Posed by TikTok and Taking Additional Steps to Address National Emergency, blah, blah, blah. This is a Trump executive order, and it was all about TikTok and China and national security risks and everything. Right over here on the side, you guys can see this. Let me zoom in a little bit for you.
Wow.
What does that say? Revoked on June 9th of 2021 by Joe Biden. And so I would argue, what's her name? KJP
Corinne.
Yeah, whatever, that you have not been very clear about your stance on TikTok. You've been a little confused and confusing because you're reversing Trump's executive order. Again, it just proves he was right about everything. They remove stuff and do things purely out of politics and just in spite of Trump, even though ultimately they're coming back and it's the best move. It's fascinating stuff. Real quick, I want to get into our next sponsor. I got another spot here. See you in 60 seconds.
Are you struggling with a diagnosis of one or more autoimmune diseases, such as diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, MS, celiac, psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis, fibromyalgia, or chronic fatigue? Are you or a family member struggling with chronic infections, such as strep, pneumonia, bronchitis, cold, and flu? Do you experience gastrointestinal issues? Through individual counseling via telemed, Holistic Movement can help pinpoint your condition and relieve its effects on your life through holistic and integrative practices, including nutritional assessments, functional medicine workups, and referrals to traditional healing therapies like acupuncture and homeopathy. Request your complimentary virtual consultation and health assessment with Holistic Movement by going to holisticmovement.us/Badlands or call 631-255-5003. That's holisticmovement.us/Badlands or call 631-255-5003.
A phone call? Is that you or me? Oh, that's me.
Not me. All right, let's jump in here to this next story. Staying on the the kind of global politics here. Pentagon Inspector General Joe Biden is hiding classified documents detailing side deals he made with the Taliban against U.S. troops. A report from Fox News back in 2021 highlighted the scope of the crisis unfolding in Afghanistan as the Taliban took control of 75,000 U.S. vehicles, 200 U.S. aircraft, 600,000 U.S. weapons, and $85 billion in military funding. This is like Obama's Fast and Furious gun running scandal on steroids. And just a complete list of the equipment that was released: 2,000 armored vehicles, including Humvees and MRAPs, 75,000 total vehicles, 45 Black Hawk helicopters, 50 MD-530G Scout attack choppers, Scan Eagle military drones, 4 C-130s, 29 Brazilian-made A-29 Super Tucano ground attack aircraft, 600,000 small arms, including a M134 minigun and a 20-millimeter Gatling gun, 61,000 rounds of M203 40-millimeter grenade rounds, 20,000 grenades, howitzers, mortars, 10,000 2.75-inch air-to-ground rockets, explosive ordnance, including C4, pallets of millions of dollars in U.S. currency, and millions of rounds of ammunition. And now there's a report that U.S. weapons abandoned in Afghanistan are showing up in other war zones. U.S. weapons abandoned in Afghanistan are turning up in the Indian-controlled Kashmir. And now this: Joe Biden forced U.S. troops to stand down even when checkpoints were attacked in Afghanistan. From Paul Sperry, Joe Biden is hiding the side deals he made with the Taliban before the calamitous withdrawal from Afghanistan. And it says down here, the Pentagon's Inspector General for Afghanistan complains in a new report that the Biden administration is hiding classified annexes detailing side deals made with the Taliban before the withdrawal, including restrictions on the U.S. fighting and Taliban counter-terror efforts. That to me sounds like treason. If those 13 Marines and soldiers and corpsmen, if they died because Joe Biden tied their hands behind their backs, I can't tell you what that is going to do to this administration with the veteran community. It's going to light a fire under a lot of our asses that's been already burning. It's gasoline on that fire, we should say.
Yeah, I mean the whole Afghanistan situation, it's kind of a mind bender because there are some things happening there that are, I don't know. I mean, if you followed my work, I consider them dev proofs, right? It's Trump was negotiating with the Taliban to take over and basically fight ISIS, right? Like that's what he wanted to. It's not. I'm not saying Taliban is a good people. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there was a mutually beneficial situation here where we could have left Afghanistan and allowed the Taliban to take over and take on ISIS. That was like part of the Doha agreement that was being worked out. Okay. It's speculative. A lot of the stuff is classified, but one could argue that it's likely in that situation, the Taliban would get weapons and support from the United States military to do that. And so we had this botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Taliban get all these weapons, which again, likely would have been in that agreement. And now, I mean, if you Google Taliban fighting ISIS, I mean, there's tons of stories that come up about how the Taliban is fighting ISIS. Inside the hidden war between the Taliban and ISIS, U.S. Cooperation with ISIS, why Taliban special forces are fighting the Islamic State. There's all sorts of stories like that out there. When it comes to that story about, the classified documents and whatnot with the Taliban, I don't know. I mean, I think there's something more going on here. I do think it was Joe Biden's fault what happened with the 13 soldiers that died. And it's such an unfortunate situation. I think there's more going on here than we realize. And I don't know if we'll ever get the full story behind some of this stuff, but I think it's a more complicated situation than we know.
Agreed.
I don't know. Sorry, it's kind of vague, but
no, I agree with you 100%. Everything that's going on there. This is the Inspector General of the Biden administration that's calling.
Is there a link to that report?
I'll find it for you after the show. I didn't have it pulled up here, just going through it briefly.
See if I can find it too.
The news. But while you're working on that, here's a story from Fox News. California City nearly eliminates homeless population with zero tolerance policy on encampments. California cities have battled a homeless crisis for years while still throwing billions of dollars at the spiraling tragedy to help those who are in dire need of housing. How much of that money actually makes it to them? Take a wild guess. But one city has defied the odds, reporting the lowest homeless population in the state. Republican Coronado mayor Republican Coronado Mayor Richard Bailey said that there are no vagrants in his city at all. And he joined Fox and Friends First to describe how he reinforced a no encampment policy while still upholding the rule of law. Quote, the policies that are in place at the regional and statewide level that are tolerating this type of behavior that is personally destructive and also destructive to the surrounding communities are really enabling this situation to increase throughout our entire state and throughout our entire region. Bailey explained that the city works with the police department and homeless service provider to give the homeless only one option: get the help that they need. Coronado funds quote unquote reasonable services to help those struggling to quote get back on their feet, end quote, but noted that the city also has a no tolerance policy for violating municipal codes. Quote, we also want to make it clear that we don't tolerate encampments along our sidewalks, and we don't tolerate other code violations such as being drunk in public or urinating in public or defecating in public. We just simply don't tolerate these basic code violations. What ends up happening is an individual either chooses to get help or they end up leaving. California allocated $10 billion to curb the homeless crisis from 2018 to 2022. Despite the massive government spending dedicated to alleviating the crisis, the Golden State still has 30% of the entire country's homeless population. So there you have a Republican there actually telling homeless people, hey, there's resources available, get help or get out of here. And, you know, I don't know what percentage is getting help and what percentage is getting out of there, but you know, the city of Coronado is doing much better without homeless encampments lining the streets with, you know, what was it, John? We talked about an app that you can actually upload locations where people have defecated in public in San Francisco.
Yep. I think what do they call it?
Like
it's not Snapchat, it's or
Snap poop,
something like that. I don't know.
potty patrol.
Chat.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's disgusting, man. It's just ridiculous, and just the economy of California is absolutely nuts. I was actually there fairly recently, visiting some people and doing some work stuff, and it's nuts. I mean, everything is so expensive, and then you hear stories of they still have if you're a renter there, you remember how they had that moratorium on evictions and stuff. Like if you're a renter in California and some of these other states too, you could just stop paying rent and stay where you're at, and they could not evict you. I mean, imagine what that does to property owners. I mean, everything they've done economically in California is designed to. I mean, it's completely woke, but it's designed to almost attract the worst of the worst, like the most incompetent, the homeless, the people who they just want to not work, not do anything, and do drugs and just live. Right? They don't actually want to contribute to society. You go to California, that's like home base for you because every policy is designed to benefit you and hurt the other people. That's why so many people have left California. It's disgusting, and it's not everywhere in California. I know there are exceptions, but just as a generality, what they've done in California it's completely destroyed the state.
Well, quite the opposite, John. I think it's a majority of California is probably pretty clean and good on this. I mean, most of California is still, suburban, outside of San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, some of the major metro areas, which, that's where, that is where a majority of the population out there lives. But, you go to some of these smaller towns and they don't have these kinds of problems. I mean, there might be, to an extent there might be, but overall it's these metropolitan areas that are weighing down that city, and it's the woke progressive governors, not governors, but governorship of those people, the mayorals that are absolutely destroying these small cities. And of course the local politics, statewide politics aren't helping much either. So it's good to see somebody doing something about it and getting it done. Here's another story. Fetterman sponsors another bill from hospital as wife Giselle abandons him again. Democrat Senator John Fetterman is currently under doctor's care and being treated for depression at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Now, here, John, when I was in the Marine Corps, I know a lot of guys that had depression, especially going through boot camp and SOI and all that. But you know what we did? We got up and we went to work. We got up and we did our job. Every single one of them got up and did their job. Now, this guy was elected, quotes, elected to represent the state of Pennsylvania, one of two people that represents the state of Pennsylvania, and one of 100 people that makes decisions for the entire United States of America. And depression warrants him taking several weeks off and disappearing and completely being I don't want to say persona non grata, but completely out of the limelight. No pictures, no photos, no comments, no nothing. This is disgusting, man. But apparently he sponsored another bill from the hospital on Thursday. This is after he sponsored one on Wednesday. We know that Fetterman's chief of staff blocked a reporter for asking how he was able to sponsor a bill while he's hospitalized. And then the crazy thing is his wife. Now this is I don't know, I'm not going to judge their personal relationship, but we remember back in May of 2021, was it 2021? 2022, when she was right there by his bedside as he had the stroke and everything else. And now we've got them in Canada having vacations. I think they went to the Bahamas as well, or, someplace else on a vacation. And I don't know, man. What is going on with this Fetterman guy?
We've seen proof of life of this
That's
guy.
what I'm saying. No, the Washington, I think it was Washington County Republican Party came out and said, we have to have proof of life. Like, we've got to know that this guy's either alive, that he didn't have another stroke, that he's doing okay. We got to know what's going on. So
there was rumor spreading, which I hate unverified rumors, but he had a stroke, he's dead, and they're just covering it up and for long enough until they can. I don't even remember what it fully was. I don't listen to the rumor mill, but yeah, I mean, I agree. We need proof of life to know that this guy is actually the one signing the stuff. We have no reason to believe that he's actually the one that's signing bills or doing anything, or voting on stuff, and they're actually following his orders. If this guy was, if he's supposedly the elected representative for that state, I mean, he should publicly address the people and prove that he's competent to do the job that he was supposedly elected for. And we know there's election fraud, but still, that's the point of this. And it's pretty ridiculous that we haven't seen, proof of life at this point.
I mean, he's a U.S. senator. It's not like this guy's in the private. He is a public figure. He's a public servant. And yeah, I'm with you on that. So here's another story. This is from Semaphore. Non-person Donald Trump's faces a soft ban at Fox News. Now, we kind of knew this, but this is pretty crazy. Donald Trump, who once dominated Fox News broadcasts, is now running into a brick wall with what 4 members of his circle say is a quote-unquote soft ban from the top of the conservative news channel as it rolls out the red carpet to even the low-profile rival candidates. Quote, everyone knows that there's this soft ban or silent ban, one source close to Trump told Semaphore. It's certainly, however you want to say, quiet ban, soft ban, whatever it is, it's indicative of how the Murdochs feel about Trump in this particular moment. In recent moments, 2024 Republican presidential hopefuls have been seen almost daily on the network, pitching themselves to its vast conservative audience. According to Media Matters' internal database of cable news appearances, Nikki Haley's been featured on weekday Fox News shows 7 times since announcing her presidential bid on February 14th. Even the little-known fund manager Vivek Ramaswamy, who announced on February 21st, has made 4 weekday appearances. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is widely expected to run, has been all over the networks in recent days. Trump hasn't been on Fox News since announcing his presidential bid in November. Another Trump aide told Semaphore that they've heard firsthand that the soft ban is from people at Fox. So this is pretty interesting, but of course, Fox News has no problem putting Trump's name in their headlines when Iran is threatening to kill him. Iran reissues a threat to kill Trump, Pompeo for Soleimani death when announcing long-range cruise missile. So yeah, just when it's something negative against Trump or something that they would probably, the Murdochs would cheer, perhaps, I don't know, can't say that, but get rid of Fox News, ladies and gentlemen. You're muted, by the way.
My bad. I had a little cough and didn't want to disrupt your reading there. I'm not no fan of Fox News. Like, I like what they do because they have the biggest conservative audience, and I think they do a terrible job, but they do a good enough job of criticizing the Biden administration that it at least plants seeds in people's minds and pushes the ball a little bit forward, but it's not nearly enough. Okay. When I saw the deposition or the lawsuit from Dominion, which I still think is a ridiculous lawsuit. Like, if you have no issues and, why not just put everything public, whatever. The lawsuit is what it is. But you see these texts from these people and it just made me cringe. Like Tucker Carlson calling Trump a demonic force and, basically talking shit about the guy. It's ridiculous. And they only care about their stock prices. They said that in the lawsuit as well. I do not like Fox News. And yeah, they are, giving these little candidates airtime, like the Vivek whatever and Haley, and they're abandoning Trump. It's going to backfire on them. It will. It's just a matter of time.
I mean, we talked about it yesterday, John. His poll numbers are better than ever right now. I mean, he's 55% over the entire Republican competition right now in the primary. And that's a huge number. And we're going to see a CPAC speech tomorrow night at CPAC. And when that comes out, it's probably going to be even better. And so, yeah, Fox News, hey, if you want to keep ignoring him and his poll numbers continue to go up, go for it. Go for it. Nothing but best wishes to you in that strategy. But as long as it's benefiting his run, I'm all about it. So another article here from AP News, Trump can be sued for the January 6th riot harm, says the Justice Department. President Donald Trump can be sued by injured Capitol police officers and Democratic lawmakers over the January 6th insurrection at U.S. Capitol. Now, that's my argument. They should be sued for using that term, insurrection. The Justice Department said Thursday in a federal court case testing Trump's legal vulnerability for his speech before the riot. The Justice Department told a Washington federal appeals court in a legal filing that it should allow the lawsuits to move forward, rejecting Trump's argument that he is immune from the claims. The department said it takes no position on the lawsuit's claims that the former president's words incited the attack on the Capitol. Nevertheless, justice lawyers told the court that a president would not be protected by absolute immunity if his words were found to have been an incitement of imminent private violence. Now, John, we talk about this all the time, how things happen to Trump and they set up in the future to kind of go against the people that tried to implement this against Trump. Look at the raids. We're going to talk about those here in a second, but the Mar-a-Lago raids led to Pence and Biden and everybody else having classified documents taken from them. I think that this is something that could end up benefiting our J6ers in the future when they go against when their cases are all settled and finished up and whatever it may be. I think this is going to set precedent for the J6ers to be able to sue the J6 committee and say that them calling J6ers insurrectionists without ever charging anybody of that federal crime. Okay, that's very specific. That would be like Congress calling somebody a murderer when they didn't have anything to do with the murder. It was an accidental death or whatever it may be. But by this committee calling them insurrectionists, they've tainted the jury pool, not just in D.C. where everybody's being tried, but across the country. And I think that this right here, taking away absolute immunity and saying that Trump can be sued by the Capitol police officers for his words, peacefully and patriotically, let me remind you, that is something that J6ers will be able to use in the future to sue the J6 sham committee, to go after Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney and Kinzinger and all these other individuals. So I'm not too worried about this. I don't think they have any case whatsoever against Trump for inciting this, but I think it's going to lay the groundwork for the future.
It's the templates thing that Just Human talks about. This is setting up a template for other people, because what Trump did was not inciting insurrection. But this is setting things up to go after other people, actually, because I'm gonna play a video here. It is a 2-minute long video. I've played it before, but who is really inciting violence?
Real quick, before you do that, John, I just have to reiterate that the attack on the Capitol was already underway when Trump was speaking. Nobody there was listening to what Trump said. They didn't hear him. They were already there starting this. Okay, go ahead.
Well, just to further add to your point, I did a whole article on this and I want to share it now. This was my part 6. At the end, I do a little, this is all about Antifa, right? And all the moves Trump made to combat them. We had proof here on, as of this day, June 1st, that June 1st, the Bible Walk Day, was the first day that the military was used in surveillance of protests across the country. The first, the military, domestic use of the military, which is interesting in and of itself. But at the end here, I do a little timeline and how Trump was scheduled to speak at 11, and he didn't actually show up for like an hour. Like, he was an hour late to his speech. The speech lasted an hour, 12 minutes, ending at 1:12 p.m. Eastern, right here. The speech ended at 1:12 p.m. Eastern. You can see the sources where I got everything. Lawmakers gathered for their session at the Capitol starting at 1 p.m. The Capitol barricades were breached at 1:05. So Trump was still speaking while the Capitol was breached, while the barricades were breached. So again, the whole thing is a joke, and I do believe Trump knew about it, because in his memo issued the day before, January 5th, he said, in fact, Antifa has long been used has long used otherwise permissible demonstration to engage in lawless criminal behavior to further its radical agenda. These violent acts undermine the rights of peaceful protesters and destroy lives, blah, blah, blah. And he goes on to, say these are basically, it's a terrorist organization. And so I believe he knew that Antifa was going to hijack the January 6th protest of the Electoral College vote. But anyway, I want to show this video. This if they can go after Trump, supposedly for what he said, if this is the precedent they're setting, what does that mean for these people in this video?
Just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
There you have it. Open up the lawsuits. Let's do this. Peaceful and patriotically versus everything you just heard right there. Oh man, it's pretty disgusting. Do you have anything else on that?
Nope. I'll post that video again. I post it every now and then. It's
absolutely
remarkable.
Well, you know what it is. Everything that they accuse Trump of, they do themselves. So this is from Jonathan Turley. Washington Post, top FBI officials opposed Mar-a-Lago raid. Now this is interesting, and I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this. Let me go through this. The Washington Post is reporting that there was a heated debate in the Justice Department over the decision to raid Mar-a-Lago in July of 2022. Senior FBI agents objected that they believe that a consensual search was possible without the necessity of a raid. It was Maine justice officials who overruled them and insisted on the raid. Jay Bratt, chief of the Counterintelligence and Export Control Section of the National Security Division, joined other justice officials to demand a raid. He was accompanied to the FBI by Assistant Attorney General Matt Olson, as well as two counterintelligence officials, George Toscas and Alan E. Kohler Jr. Now, what's interesting is, why is the chief of counterintelligence and export control section involved in a decision to raid a private U.S. citizen's personal home over documents, presidential records? That was interesting. But reading on, it says Toscas previously worked on the Crossfire Hurricane and Clinton email investigations. He reportedly pushed for the raid. I wonder why. Maybe because he wanted to cover his own assets without the ETS. Stephen D'Antuono, then head of the FBI Washington field office, was running the investigation and said that he considered the raid to be unnecessary and overkill. Now, that was a little bit interesting for me because I don't have a very favorable opinion of Stephen D'Antuono. And he's basically saying the FBI didn't want to do the raid. We thought that we could get away with just doing consensual searches and all that. So notably, the article reports that D'Antuono, quote, also questioned why the search would target presidential records as well as classified records, particularly because the May subpoena only sought the latter. It quotes him as objecting, quote, "We are not the presidential records police." Finally, D'Antuono reportedly demanded to know if Trump was officially the subject of the criminal investigation. As head of the FBI investigation, that was a telling question. Bratt promptly replied, quote, "What does it matter?" It mattered a great deal. A number of us expressed surprise. This is Turley here. It mattered a great deal. A number of us expressed surprise later that presidential records were such a focus of a criminal indictment. Presidential record disputes are ordinarily administrative or civil matters. It turns out that the FBI shared the same unease. When classified documents were found by both Biden and Pence after the Trump raid, they were also not subject to search warrants, but allowed to have counsel look for additional classified material. In all three cases, the FBI seemed to approach the controversies as collection rather than criminal efforts. The report will only deepen the unease over how the Justice Department will handle the classified document controversy. Since the raid, Joe Biden and former Vice President Michael Pence were both found to have classified material in their private homes. In the case of Biden, some of the documents go back to over a decade, to his time as senator, and were found in multiple locations, including his University Center office and his personal library. So you have look, I don't want to get too conspiratorial. This is mainly just covering news topics of the day, but I have a problem with now all of a sudden the FBI, the top brass at the FBI in Washington, Stephen D'Antuono, is saying that I was against this raid. I don't know if the FBI is trying to save face because they're wildly unpopular. It does say here, a fifth of Americans now view the government as the greatest threat facing the nation. 50% of Americans only trust the FBI, quote unquote, some of the time, or quote unquote, hardly ever. And what is truly shocking is that 53% in one poll agreed with the statement that the FBI acts like Biden's Gestapo. So, I mean, they're wildly unpopular with the American populace. And now all of a sudden you have them coming out and trying to kind of, backtrack and cover their ass on this raid.
Again, the whole raid, it's an interesting story. I need to read through that and study it a little bit more, and maybe even talk to Just Human about it, because there are some aspects to the raid that, how do I put this? It makes me believe that Trump knew about it and it was like meant to happen this way. It was like what people would call a white hat operation. Right? Do you remember? It Scavino the night before Trump's raid. And I'm trying to find the episode that we went over this, because I did a whole Power Hour episode on this, and if I could find it, it'd be kind of fascinating here, but I can't. Whatever. But anyway, the night before the raid, Scavino posted a picture of a door and like it had 45 on it, and it was. I mean, it's just there's so many correlations here that add up to this being a white hat operation. Nobody leaked that the raid was happening. If this was CNN has been looking for every instance to cover Trump in a negative light. Think back to Roger Stone, that raid. They had the news van from CNN showed up before the raid got there, like 10 minutes before, whatever. If they had known about the raid at Mar-a-Lago, they would have had news trucks there all day long, 24/7 coverage. I mean, just blasting that thing. Who broke the story of the raid at Mar-a-Lago? It was Trump. Trump himself posted about it, and that was what broke the story. So, I mean, the whole thing is, but that's an interesting little, piece of news where there's some internal conflict of whether or not they should do the raid. That's fascinating. You should link me that article. Send it to me.
I'll send it to you. All right, so let's jump into this story here from Sabato's Crystal Ball. The UVA Center for Politics. Liz Cheney to serve as professor of practice with UVA Center for Politics. So she found a home to get, her, I don't know. I don't want to allude to anything here, but she found a home. Let's just say that. The Center for Politics at the University of Virginia announced Wednesday that former Representative Liz Cheney has accepted an appointment to serve as the professor of practice with the Center for Politics. The inaugural appointment is effective immediately and will run through the conclusion of 2023 fall semester with an option to renew for one more additional year. And that's all the time I want to give to Liz Cheney. So moving on to the next story. I can't stand that woman. College Park mayor arrested on 56 counts of possession, distribution of child pornography. For those of you that don't know, College Park is a suburb of Washington, D.C. in Maryland. Patrick Wojahn, the mayor of College Park, Maryland, was arrested Thursday morning on charges of possession and distribution of child sex abuse materials, Prince George County Police said. Wojahn, 47, has resigned from his position as mayor, according to a new news release. Sorry about that. Patrick Wojahn, the mayor of College Park, was arrested Thursday morning on charges of possession. I scrolled up by accident. According to news release from Prince George County Police, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children notified police of a suspicious social media account operating in the county on February 17th. Quote, the images and videos had been uploaded to the social media account in January of 2023 through various investigative techniques. PGPD investigators discovered the social media account belonged to Wojahn. Police served a search warrant on his home on Tuesday and found, quote, multiple cell phones, a storage device, a tablet, and a computer. He was taken into custody and charged with 40 counts of possession of child exploitive material and 16 counts of distribution of child exploitive material. And the Gateway Pundit was on top of this and showed all these pictures of the two mayors, Pete Buttigieg and Wojahn, grabbing beers together. Jump down here to another picture of them. I don't know. You got two gay mayors and they kind of have like I'm not going to say a relationship, but a friendship or whatever. This is shocking, right? Nobody's shocked by this. Nobody's actually shocked by this. Washington, D.C. elites doing what we've been saying for a long time now. It's disgusting. Yep. I'm absolutely disgusted by that. But
I have no comment on it either. It's just, I'm glad he got arrested.
And then we got this tweet right here from a former Grey's Anatomy star, and it says, "It is with a heavy heart." Listen to this. This is Hollywood. Finally, well, some Hollywood. Maybe this will wake up some of Hollywood. "It is with a heavy heart and a sense of relief that I am announcing my early retirement from the entertainment industry today. Those who have been following and witnessing my journey here on Twitter since." He doesn't call it Twitter. Since 2011, all know that I have fought the good fight, but it seems that the haters, provocateurs, and the useful idiots have won. I'm no longer interested in the back and forth regarding a, quote, color construct, end quote, that keeps us human beings divided, nor am I interested in politics or anything vitriolic. I will be traveling this great country before it falls into socialism and then communism. Until then, know that this Frederick Douglass conservative will keep his powder dry and loves you all. I'm truly grateful for your support over the years. It looks like Corsicana movie may be the last time you see me as an actor born here in America. Just know that I will be posting a few pictures of my retirement shenanigans, but other than that, be safe, you loved ones, and salute you." So Grey's Anatomy star resigns from Hollywood because of the woke culture and the divide that they're putting on all of us. So
it's unbelievable.
Yep. And then I know we're kind of, go ahead.
I said just good for him though. That's fascinating.
Well,
my computer's being so weird right now. It's like freezing up on me.
No worries. Well, this is going to be our last story, and I just want to briefly touch on this. So remember, we were supposed to get the J6 footage from Tucker Carlson this week. Well, they've postponed it again, and it will now be, they're saying on Thursday night, last night, Tucker told his audience he will release the information this next week on his team's analysis of the 42,000 hours of footage. And of course, we're not going to see much of that footage, but they're going to tell us what they saw so that we trust them. Trust us. Nothing ever goes bad with that.
That whole situation is so frustrating. I don't even want to. We covered that a little bit yesterday, but yeah. Is that the last story, you think?
Yeah, we got a few Rumble rants, but if you got something to throw in there,
let's go through them.
All right. So Dak8869 says, "John, in case you missed it, it's always better to ask forgiveness instead of permission. Taking that in consideration, we may." Oh, okay. You read that one already. I'm sorry. St. Pete says, "John, CanCon did an outstanding job last night with General Flynn. Waiting for him to narrate Flynn's audiobook. I would love for that to happen. Tag him on Twitter if you guys are on there. Let CanCon narrate your book." Kelty11, "Hey guys, CanCon proved last night that giveaways work. It's a great incentive for the audience. I loved hearing General Flynn call us Badlanders."
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I gave him a prop for that. C Meadow says, "How long before the insurance companies start denying due to the vax being emergency use, therefore experimental?" Hey, I feel like I said that. Great point. But I think C Meadows tweeted that or Rumble ranted that before I said it. So New Kid, "Buy an old car and keep that bleep running. Universal Electric. Someone has a master kill switch." And what he's talking about there is getting a pre-OBD2 car where everything's basically run on wires instead of computers. So that way, if there's, first off, you can't get any interference like that Ford thing they were talking about, but you also are protected from an EMP with a carbureted vehicle that doesn't rely on electronic fuel injection. O'Brien 96 says, let us not forget that Henry Ford was a eugenist and supplied the Nazis with tanks. Ford is not supporting America first at all. Yeah, I mean, there was support. Yes, he did support the Nazi party back then, but, you know, all things considered, moving on, the invention of the assembly line was pretty significant. But I do agree with you that Henry Ford personally, I don't necessarily think he was America first. So New Kid says, how do you think the Hells Angels will feel about being forced into all electric bikes? It's a good point. I don't think they would be happy about that at all. New Kid says, Devo proof on the Afghan stuff. There you go. Yep. Brought that up. Let's see. What do we got? I think that might have been it. No, we got another one. BDR 1230. John, how can you say the government controlling everything, being able to shut off cars and other things, but you pushed Bitcoin? I don't want anybody knowing what I'm buying cash is the only way.
Bitcoin, but that you don't understand Bitcoin if you think that it can be controlled, guys.
Well, the only thing that I would say about it being controlled is that if you shut off the power grid, there is no Bitcoin. That's the only aspect of control that I would argue.
Yeah, but you know, if you shut off the power grid, would that affect the satellites?
No, but how do you pay for something if there's no power?
Yeah, but I mean, it wouldn't be a forever thing, right? I mean, if there's a power grid attack or something and it goes down, we'd still have the satellites, and so the Bitcoin wouldn't lose until the power grid comes back online. Like, unless it was a forever thing. But if we get to a point where the power grid goes off for a forever thing, it's probably due to some sort of nuclear attack or something, and then it doesn't matter. You won't be alive to spend the Bitcoin anyway. But like, if you have your Bitcoin on like a, what are they called? Like a Coinbase or not a wallet, but like the exchanges. That's, I mean, you need to get it off of there and get it to a cold storage, like a Trezor. I have one. I would watch the Rug Pull Radio. If you think Bitcoin can be tracked and monitored, you're doing it wrong. There's a way you can do it through G Money, and you know, they explain it all. But you can set up a wallet and everything, totally anonymous. Nobody knows where it's at. That's what you do with your Bitcoin. It can't be touched. So
I think I'm going to reach out to those guys and try and get them on my podcast to talk about like a kind of an introduction, because I know they don't want to do it on Rug Pull because they're, you know, progressively moving down the line with it. So to go back and do something like that, but maybe, you know, something to kind of wake up people that don't know anything about crypto, that would be something that would be educational for a lot of people.
And I'll admit, like, I don't know everything about cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin in general. I'm not the one that you should be taking advice from. I'm recommending you go to other people who know more. I'm still learning a lot, but what I'm saying is that what I have seen from Bitcoin is fascinating. I've been reading this guy Jason Lowry. He's brilliant. He's part of Space Force. He's an MIT doing I don't remember what it's called. He's like doing a fellowship there or whatever for a year, and he wrote this book, Soft War, and it's a theory about power projection and the future of warfare and how Bitcoin and proof of work could play a role in it. And it's a great book. I'm not quite finished with it yet, but he wrote this book. He's been doing interviews, all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, just this morning, change of plans, going dark. Thanks everyone for your support. You will be missed. Please continue to spread the message of software to skeptics. The strategic importance of Bitcoin and proof of work is starting to be taken seriously. All it takes to see is it is a different point of view. Yeah. The fact he's going dark is very interesting. But this whole book he wrote, you guys need to read it if you want to truly understand Bitcoin, because it's not just a monetary aspect. Like there's so many use cases for the technology of Bitcoin. That's what the point of it is. So again, I don't have all the answers. I readily admit that. I'm not an expert here, but I urge you to try to understand. You know, go to Rug Pull Radio, listen to those guys, listen to some other people, listen to this Jason Lowry and his podcast. Cryptocurrency is not going anywhere. Like that technology, the blockchain technology is not going anywhere. It is the future. It's just there's so many different cryptocurrencies. It's crazy. All the pump and dumps and everything. It's nuts. But eventually, at some point, one of these is going to like stick out and be the primary cryptocurrency, almost like the main like the petrodollar has been the reserve currency. There's likely going to be some sort of reserve crypto. You know what I mean? So It's coming, guys. It's just a matter of when. But also, I still recommend people getting gold and silver too. We don't know what's coming.
Oh yeah, absolutely diversify. Gold, silver, and brass. Don't ever forget about brass. That brass is the universal get what you need denomination. But yeah, don't forget to diversify, man. Does that book start out with a preface on what Bitcoin is for somebody like me that kind of understands a little bit but not much, or does it jump right into the heavy stuff?
No, it starts out. It's like the first 4 chapters of it are more theoretical about the future of warfare and power projection and what software is, and it goes into like the history of war and how things have developed. And um, basically, this guy's like screaming like we need to take Bitcoin and proof of work seriously, because if other governments do, like Russia kind of has turned the tables on this, China's like going back and forth. If we're the last ones to do this, then we could end up being in big trouble. And if you think of, back in other world wars, like the guy who first was preaching the Air Force, like we need to do this with the Air Force, the airplanes are going to be the future of warfare. But the Navy and the Army were like, no, it's always going to be ground troops and boats, naval. Well, then Pearl Harbor happened. If we would have taken that guy seriously, we may have been able to prevent what happened with Pearl Harbor. I mean, that's kind of the arguments he makes throughout history. That always happens. Like the guys who are telling you about what the next technology is kind of get ignored until you need that technology. And we don't want to be the ones that are falling behind. We've kind of been lucky in the past. We were the first to develop nuclear technology, right? Nuclear warfare. If we weren't, that could have been like if Germany in World War II would have been the first to develop that, what would have happened there? It's the same thing. So just have an open mind and do some due diligence on it. Study up. Don't take my word for it. You be skeptical of me, because again, I don't know everything. I'm not claiming to. Just from my understanding, what I've read so far and what I'm reading, I have confidence in. Like I've personally put money in Bitcoin. Like that's my personal preference. I have other stuff too, but I see value in it, and it's mainly because of this Jason Lowry and his book. The guy's brilliant. He's part of Space Force. There's other people in Space Force who talk about this stuff. I'm on board, even as I'm understanding. So.
All right. Liberty Lion says, so when can I look forward to the audio copy of General Flynn's book by Brian Lupo? When General Flynn says, okay, I said, I will, if you come on our show again in a month or so or whatever, if you come on our show again, I will narrate it for free. So, and that's, I mean, I think they charge a couple $1,000s to do narrations on that. So that's a pretty good offer right there. And that's all I've got, John.
One more note on Bitcoin. I just want to say this, and I'm still trying to research this part myself, but supposedly, and Jason Lowry says this in the book too, that whoever created Bitcoin, like whatever his name is, the pseudonymous guy, he was clearly, he had some sort of NSA background. Okay, that's an interesting aspect of this too, the NSA background thing in terms of devolution, all that stuff. So again, I'm still researching, still learning. It's just a nugget that I found interesting. So anyway, that's all I got too, guys. Today let me pull up the schedule, because we have if you guys remember Dauntless Dialogue, they did a video series for me called Devolved, 5-episode series. It was brilliant. They did such great work. They basically took my devolution series and turned it into documentary format. Have you seen that, Brian, by the way?
I have not. I'm looking forward to it though.
You would dig it. So, I mean, this was out a while ago, but today they've worked with a couple other Badlands folks, and we're putting out a series I just want to check the time, so bear with me, guys. Okay, I think it's today at 6:00. We have the global coup d'etat. It's about the vaccine and stuff. It's fascinating stuff. 6:00 today here on Badlands, the premiere of Global Coup d'etat by Dauntless Dialogue, and they had some of the series writers were some Badlands people, so you're going to want to check that out. It's a very, very good video. It gets into some of the Nuremberg stuff and what they did with the vaccine, kind of proving it was planned. Make sure you check that out. Tonight we have Liberty Den as well, so we'll see you guys there. And yeah, we appreciate y'all. Thank you all for tuning in as always. Make sure you hit that plus sign and thumbs up on the way out. It helps us climb the leaderboard. And the reason that's important, guys, is because when people go to the leaderboard and looking for shows to watch, they see like, oh, hey, Badlands, what's this? A lot of people seem to like this thing, and it helps us get more eyes on our show. That's why it's important. So please do us that favor. We greatly appreciate it.
Yep. SitRep actually made the leaderboard. I think that's our second time, but I think we were in the top 15 last night with General Flynn's podcast. So that was
awesome. We pretty much average. I mean, I think every one of our shows makes the leaderboard in some fashion. We usually get 1 or 2 shows in the top 10, and it's been great. And it's all because of you guys in the audience helping us out. So we appreciate it, and we're growing because of you guys doing that. We truly appreciate your help. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week on Badlands Daily, 10 a.m. Eastern on Monday.